I really didn't know about trans, honestly. I came up in the 80s and 90s, and it just wasn't something that was really talked about.
I went to a very conservative seminary, and I was taught that God created the male and female, that there was no other genders, that when someone is born either male or female, that's God's original intent, and that God doesn't make mistakes.
I'm 79. We have thought the same way for a long time. And there are those who have kept up with the times, but they're few and far between.
I was in the last year of college, and I wasn't ready to be a mom, not ready to go that route yet, but I was ecstatic that I was going to have a little girl. When they actually handed that baby to me, oh my God, that wonderful, my child, it was an awesome feeling. I'm officially a mom. It was wonderful, wonderful.
Growing up, my mom, she's very real. She is definitely a realist. She's gonna keep it straightforward no matter what. She is very kind, she's very understanding, very caring.
Caden liked to play basketball. He loved his cousins. He just got along at school really well. Caden was a tomboy, always wanted to play basketball, tried to outdo me in basketball, thought he could, but he could not. Could not.
I never wanted to be in dresses or skirts or heels, even putting on nail polish. Like I never wanted that.
I was a counselor, but still am a counselor. And I heard things, in the hallways, and I knew that there were girlfriends, people were Caden is trying to get with, this certain girl. It was in my office, we were just talking. I'm like, I heard that you were trying to talk to, such and such.
And I was like, Mom, I like girls. I don't know if Pops has told you, but yeah, I like a woman.
I was like, okay, well, I'm cool with that, so.
I watched the movie Aladdin back in the day, and he had 3 wishes from the genie. And I was like, okay, so if he can get 3 wishes, I know maybe I can get 3 wishes. And my 3 wishes were, I wanted to be a boy, I wish everybody knew I was a boy, and I wish I was rich. When I came out as trans, we were moving actually from Nashville to Michigan. And I was telling my mom, like, I don't think I want to be like just a lesbian. I actually want to be a male. She was like, what?
My statement was like, how in the world could you know that you wanted to be a man at 3 and 4 years old?
She was like, I was a tomboy when I was younger, why don't you just be a tomboy? Even my grandma, she was like, are you sure? Honestly, I knew it was coming, just knowing who she is. It did make me sad. It made me a little angry too, because I knew who I was at a young age. Knowing that, basically she wasn't with it, kind of like hurt me, I guess, I just wanted to be me.
I did not understand what this meant. What are you talking about? A man is a man and a woman is a woman. How am I gonna get grandchildren? That was my expectation. How are we supposed to continue this lineage? But on top of being a Black male in the United States, like now the eyeball's gonna be on you even more.
It was hard. It was very hard, especially when you just want to be a kid. You just want to live, and be happy. And when there's something in you that is basically tormenting you, and no matter what you do, where you go, there's still this inside feeling that I'm not okay. And I want to go. I also struggle with suicide as well. And I had my first suicidal attempt in 2017 before I moved. And I felt ugly. I felt worthless. I just felt like I was just this bad human being.
Oh, wow. It was scary.
So when Skylar was a young kiddo, I mean, I think that's when we first really started picking up on Skylar having picked up herself on societal cues of wanting to wear clothing that was softer in color as opposed to harsh boy color, alleged boy colors of, you know, blue and, you know, whatever.
I always thought I'd grow up to be a woman, and I would ask my mom, like, hey mom, like when am I gonna get boobs? When are my parts gonna grow in? And so it was kind of always just, you know, girly and feminine things for me.
My wife started researching. She likens it to yesterday and 200 years ago when she sat me down on the back porch and we had, quote, the conversation that about Sky and that my wife thought she was trans.
I never really had to come out to them. You know, of course I told them that I was trans and they knew, but they always knew.
So my parents are the stereotypical white Southern middle class picket fence upbringing. Their upbringing shaped their lives so as to think that men go to work and men are responsible for this and the women stay home and have dinner ready and the food on the table for when the men, you know, that whole 1950s mentality.
My name is Tom Morrison. Andrew is my son and Skylar is my granddaughter. When Andrew told us, we questioned how they knew that because it was at a very young age and we're just very conservative and we didn't understand that it was not a phase, that it was actually, it was reality. And they had accepted that reality, whereas from our standpoint, it could have just been a phase that the child was going through.
Seemingly the world split open, and we were the root cause of that because our daughter is trans.
I remember crying, and I think I just hung up the phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was crying, and I just hung up the phone, and
My wife and I spent time trying to communicate and educate and teach my parents specifically. Our daughter isn't abnormal. She's not a freak. She's not wrong. She is who she is. But I don't know that the desire to educate oneself was there. So we stopped doing it.
So, I mean, my relationship, it kind of changed drastically, you know? I went from seeing him like...
Every holiday.
Yeah, pretty much like every holiday.
Uh-huh.
And so it went from every holiday to not seeing him for 7 years.
Since we left Texas, it's been a minimum of 5 years.
Yeah.
6 years, 7 years.
We felt very ostracized and have continued to feel that way. They just are a different generation. They think differently, and they're more accepting. But honestly, we haven't done our due diligence. We have not studied, we have not done our due diligence. And that's not for lack of loving. We honestly don't know where to go. And so we did not go forward with that, and we should have. Most definitely. I'm embarrassed that we didn't. We have not been together for at least 6 years, and it may be longer than that. And it's been a waste. It's been a waste, as far as I'm concerned. It's just been a waste.
Like at first, I felt like I was really missing out on that, grandfather-granddaughter relationship and the grandparent relationship in general. But after a while, like I said, it just kind of became the norm.
It, I think, went probably exactly how I thought it would. Not surprising, I'll say that.
I talked with several other parents or grandparents and heard all kinds of stories. Oh, it's just a phase, it's just a phase. And so I didn't really accept it as the truth or as the absolute truth.
I always knew. I never once had any doubt that I was not a girl.
It took a while for it to sink in that it was truly the situation. And also, there was a certain amount of fear for her in that we didn't understand what that meant. It was a time of really misunderstanding, number one, a certain amount of not accepting, number two, not that she was our grandchild by any means, but that was indeed the direction that her life was going to go. 6 or 7 years ago, when we made, in retrospect, a feeble effort to educate ourselves, we should not have backed off because she's more important. And we are more important together than we are separately. We didn't do that, and that is sad. That's really sad. And that's our fault. I'm sorry.
I knew from a very young age that I was male, but also knew from a very young age that I would be destined to lose my family, essentially. And unfortunately, that is what happened. I think the message that I received so consistently growing up was that if you are any part of the LGBTQ plus community, that God doesn't love you, and that people, if you're part of a faith community at all, that it's their responsibility to push you away and to act like what you're doing is a choice, and that, if they actually, in a twisted form of love, if they actually love you, then they have to reject you because they have to care for your eternal soul, and this kind of really backward love.
I became a pastor because I felt like being a Christian was the way to know the truth. My church was really near a conservative Christian college in Southern California. And so we always had students coming to our church, and every year there were quite a few people who would confide in me that they were attracted to the same sex. And as a conservative church, we pretty much prayed the gay away. And so we even developed a fund from our church to send people to conversion therapy, hoping that they'll change.
I don't remember a time when I thought, oh my goodness, like, am I bad? Am I gonna go to hell? These things. If anything, it was, I truly believe that, like, I'm not, and like that God does love me, but why is everyone else saying that he hates me? I did struggle a lot, I will say though, with thinking, why would God put me in the wrong body? How cruel, how painful, how can I love or even believe in a God that would do something like that to a person?
I was taught that God created male and female, that there was no other genders, that when someone is born either male or female, that's God's original intent, and that God doesn't make mistakes.
I was so low at that point that I actually had a brief moment where I did consider suicide. I thankfully did not. I had fought so hard to get to that point of coming out and to be myself that I was not about to do that. But it was just so emotionally traumatizing that it was hard for me to imagine anyone loving me.
You know, all my encounters with LGBTQ people were people who were trying to change, people who wanted me to help them change even. I had never met people who were harmed by the church. When I first met Lyndon, we were introduced to him by a friend who told us that there was a person who had just come out as trans, that his parents had disowned him. I didn't have my theology all together, but what I knew was that we had to figure out how to love this person. And that to me was enough reason for us, my wife and I, to say, hey, we need to take this kid in. I remember thinking that here's a mom and dad who were believing this theology, and they believe that it's so much, even that though they had good intention, their belief was causing harm. I began to see just so clearly that the church has done wrong. And it brought me back to, one of our most important commandments when Jesus says that the greatest commandment is to love God and love neighbor. If loving God and loving neighbor is the greatest commandment, then that means the opposite of that, to not love, is the worst sin. It dawned on me, I was the one that was committing sin. I was the one that was committing harm. But that began this process of, deconstructing just a lot of things the stereotypes I had against LGBTQ people, and realizing that so much of what I had believed was so harmful. When Lyndon first came in, you could just see this beautiful soul, but broken. And it just really broke us, especially the first several months. He was in a mentally very difficult place. I mean, I'm kind of
I wouldn't, there were weeks, where I would hardly come out of my room, and I would just lay on the bed in there, honestly broken and just in despair and in just deep grief for the loss of my family. I also lost a lot of friends.
I didn't really have much knowledge on the trans experience. So from the very beginning, he just kind of shared, his process. He shared about gender dysphoria. He talked about all these things, what was difficult for him. And the more he talked about these specific stories, the more we were oh my gosh, how hard and how difficult gender dysphoria is.
I wasn't just dealing with the grief from all of the personal relationships and the loss of different experiences in life, but also gender dysphoria. And I would get triggered by all kinds of things that I wasn't anticipating, and it would just hit me out of nowhere. And so it was, intense, to say the least.
Taking him to the hospital was very scary because I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I knew what was going on as far as the cutting, but I didn't know the extent of the mental issues going on with Caden. But at the same time, I knew that if Caden was going to be happy and be, at peace at home, I just had to accept it and figure it out and learn about it. Learn, support, and most important, love. Continue to love on my child. And that's what we did.
The journey is amazing.
Happy tears again.
Even the ups and downs that we went through.
Even though we went through the changes of female to male, he still hasn't lost that positive attitude. And that's what I love about it. Still the same person inside, just the outside has changed, but that doesn't mean anything.
Today is my 21st birthday.
Yes.
So, I'm so blessed, thankful to God.
Yes.
And the fact that I'm here presently telling my story, helping people, giving people hope. This is the gift. This is the best birthday gift I could ever get, you know. Just blessed overall, just blessed to be here.
Yes, we are blessed for him to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for always letting me be me and just being open to change and also asking me questions that I needed to be asked, because we need to educate other people, you know? They need to hear our stories. You've been so supportive, like, and caring and kind. Like, your love is just, it's amazing. The best, number one mom, like I always say, the best mom ever.
Honestly, what he described as how much I was struggling is totally accurate. You know, I would try my best to cope with it, but there were a lot of days where I just couldn't cope anymore. But the fact that I felt safe enough to feel like I am with people that I feel are like family to me, to where I can do this, I can grieve this openly, I can be this raw and real with them because it's gonna be okay, was such a gift.
We were just like as a family now, like huddled around him and like wanting to tell the world, just go away.
Which was so amazing to me, if I can jump in, because they didn't know me at all. And so they had no clue what kind of mental or emotional state that I was in. So to just welcome me into their home was mind-blowing to me. It was very powerful.
You know, at the end of the day, this is just about learning how to love. And I think that's what happened between Lyndon and myself and our family, is we were put in a situation where we had to figure this out. And sometimes love means to go to places that might not be familiar for you. And so I think, you know, the church can change. I think communities can change. Mm-hmm. But before, this relationship wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah.
It would have been us trying to fix Lyndon,
yeah.
Us actually making him feel worse and making him more like feel ashamed and more closeted.
Danny specifically restored my faith in God and in a community of people who believe in God, because I finally saw in someone and in a group of people the love that like I always wanted to feel from God and from other Christians. And so to have him look at me and say, you are loved exactly as you are and God loves you, was, I can't put it into words, honestly.
When did you start to change your perspective on Skylar? And when did you start to really accept Skylar, you know, for who she is? Yesterday.
And a part of that is because of the Trevor Project's invitation to spend the weekend together, because otherwise it probably wouldn't have happened. This has been a wonderful weekend of being exposed to something that I didn't know anything about. It's been a wonderful weekend of being with family that we have not had for many years, a long time. It's been a wonderful weekend of being with young people who look like anybody off the street. And as I told the photographer when I asked him for a copy of a picture of the three of us, we've never had a picture of the three of us together since she's been born. That's a long time. That's a long time to waste. And it makes me more determined.
It feels good to hear that. If for no other reason, it's one more affirming voice for my daughter, reiterating to her that she's seen and she's heard and she's loved and she's felt, and she knows that her existence is needed and wanted.
This isn't about this like complex theology, but it's just trying to figure out how do we come alongside people that will give them the best chance for like human flourishing, for them to thrive, for them to be able to love.
Experiences teach us a lot. And this experience has been a wonderful one for me.
Love your child. Listen to your child. Ask questions. Don't push them away, because you're their first source of support. And just grow with the process.
Family is the most important thing. Oh yes, love and family.
Love, L-O-V-E, love.
Love.
Unconditional love and acceptance.
These kids we've been with the last couple of days, they're like any kids off the street. They're no different. They don't look any different. And it's been a revelation to me. I'm very honest, and I'm embarrassed that I have not done something about it before now. And I am so thankful that Andrew and the Trevor Project invited me to come, because I'm going to go back and I'm going to educate some people.